Hey, folks, Studio here. So for today's replay, we will be looking at a Vladimir top game. Going to be pretty cool because it is a tournament replay between two teams who are all organized together. Well, not together, but each as individual teams together, so like that. It's going to be a pretty cool replay because there is that synergy, so we will be looking at how the team does as a whole, and Vladimir, we'll touch upon him too. Aside from that, I am casting for PL this Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Times, which is kind of early, but it's a European tournament. We have some awesome European teams playing, such as Meet Your Makers, Navi, let's see, who else? Actually, I'll read the list. Against All Authority, Luna Gaming, Moscow 5, CLG EU, Absolute Legends, and SK Gaming. So that's 8 very cool teams who will be duking it out head-to-head. So check that out on Wednesday. And aside from that, let's go ahead and jump into the replay. So let's see who's playing who. So we got Turonas on Vladimir, Ilronizer on Nocturne, M4 Aiden on the attack damage cannon, Radis on Alistar, I know, Sikt on Rise, Drupa on Gangplank, Flying Potato on Graves, Legugut on Janna, Cyrus Q on Lee Sin, and finally Kelopi on Anivia. The EE is very important. So, if you did not watch the intro, this is a tournament game. Both teams are pre-made. It is a 5v5 with both teams assumedly on Ventrilo or Mumble or TS or Skype talking to each other. There is communication. Whoa. And I'd like to give shout-outs to the blue team for giving me this replay because things happen to them. Less than pleasant things. So it's brave to give a replay where it is not you at your best going 20-0, 40, 100, 1,000 assists and being the best team player ever. So that invade failed. It's okay. It happens. And they go ahead, they back off. But this is kind of bad for Vladimir. Let's look where he's walking through right now. If the enemy team had gone for home team's blue, they would have caught Vladimir right there, and they would have killed him most likely. Furthermore, Vladimir ran here from mid lane at 150. It's 215. He only missed 1 CS luckily, but still, that is 1 creep of experience he didn't get that he could have gotten had he gone back to base, bought a health pot, or just been ready and been here. Now, Vladimir is at his weakest in these levels. This is the weak Vladimir time. Eventually, Vladimir will enter the Vladimir zone, which is a terrifying and horrifying experience for anybody up against him as he just sustains and harasses you non-stop. But Vladimir kind of sucks now. He only has 450 attack range. His attack damage is terrible. He's got 4880. That's nothing. And he doesn't do a lot. He just spams his Q, but as you can see, Gangplank can do the same thing, and he'll actually do more damage. His benefit is that his Q does not use mana. So, in terms of sustain, well, he doesn't use mana. He will be there forever queuing if you don't kill him. And Gameplank's kind of a hard character for Vladimir, at the same time a very, very weak character. So right now, he's spamming his Qs. As you can see, it's 100 damage when he's level 3, and that damage is high. He's really pressuring him. But eventually, that Q damage will kind of fall off, and we'll have a Vladimir who will be doing more or less the same amount of damage with a shorter cooldown skill, and sustaining for quite a bit more than a Gangplank would with lifesteal. So it's going to be kind of hard for Gangplank, but he has to pressure now. That's what you do against Vladimirs. You pressure now. You pressure in the early game where he's not scary, he's just a weak little blood guy, and eventually he will turn to the blood god demon thing. Right now though, he's weak. Spam Qs, push into his tower, he can't auto attack very well, and do your crazy thing. I believe he actually has the masteries to do more damage to creeps, which isn't the worst idea. But, I think there's actually just something weird with the display for attack damage. Anyhow, I mean, it's 100 damage versus 100 damage. Vladimir just has a much longer cooldown. But Vladimir needs to try and save as many cooldowns as he can for harassing that Gangplank or sustaining. So he either spams it on creeps or spams it on GP. But when he has a decent life advantage, it's best for him to just go ahead and save it for Gangplank. Because then if he can make Gangplank be in a position to punish, but be scared to punish, then it's okay. So when Vladimir's Q is on cooldown, Gangplank has to harass, and he's generally pretty good about it this game. So we'll see it be used on creep. He'll generally walk up or use that time to safely CS. You'll notice Gangplank is just hugging that bush at the bottom quite a bit, just because he knows a gank could happen, and he is in a position where he could die. But Vladimir hit level 5 right now, and this is when Vladimir starts to get a little stronger, a little beefier. As you can see, that trade was pretty high, but he's healing about 40 HP now. He now has points in his E. He can deal some damage. Duomas is pretty good about keeping his E stacks up. That's something important to know about Vladimir. You generally want to have as many stacks as the E as you can have. Sometimes it's not the best idea. Sometimes you just need to go ahead and let him drop. But the idea is if you keep your E up, you get a lot more HP from your Q, because it will increase your health regen and spell vamp. Well, not spell vamp, but you'll get increased healing. And just gonna want to go ahead and sustain and keep it up, because it also is a high damage skill when at 4 stacks. So Gangplank was losing trades, and he went back. And Vladimir goes back. And let's analyze his item purchases. He bought Sork Shoes, Health Pots, and Wards. The Sork Shoes are what I wonder about. I question this because the enemy team has Gangplank, Graves, and Lee Sin. And on the subject of Lee Sin, here he is. So that was actually a very good escape from Duomas. He W'd at the perfect time. I don't know if it was intentional, but it made Lee Sin miss his E. So he didn't get slowed, he didn't get moved slowly while pooled, which can happen if you're debuffed before you go into pool, you keep your debuffs on. So something like Fiddlestick Drain is actually very deadly to Vladimir. But the E didn't hit him, so he was able to escape. He did get hit by the Q, and he just flashed over the wall once Lee Sin was already en route. So Duomas is doing pretty solidly as a player right now. And it's okay, it's good that he's in this position. But the Sork Shoes, back to that, well, they provide more damage, which is good, but do they provide any sort of defense against this Gangplank? He's still taking very high damage, he doesn't have a whole lot of armor, and the enemy team, well, they don't have any sort of magic damage aside from Anivia. So you generally want to go ahead and build defensively. I can see an argument for Sork Shoes, but his laning is kind of tricky right now. At a minimum, he could have gotten a revolver just to sustain more, but at the same time that leaves him open to kite as Gangplank. And I don't know what the right answer is in this case. It's something you gotta think about, you gotta experiment with yourself and just figure out, oh, okay, I tried this a few times, in the end I think I do need Sork Shoes against Gangplank. Or maybe it's like, no, I really need the Ninja Tabby for the defense, or you know what, just get the revolver first, I don't need boots. 2. Just buy an amplifying tome at the beginning of the game, don't get boots, don't ever get boots, no, buy boots please. Please buy boots. But Vladimir's doing okay. He's actually kind of harassing Gangplank out now. As you get those levels as Vladimir, you just get scarier and scarier. Very few characters can deal with it once you reach 9, and you keep up that pressure. You keep spamming E, you keep spamming Q. Now, Vladimir's going back again, but look at his gold. And that's where you have to be very careful about retreating. So he needs 100 gold for a revolver. Instead, he's going to buy 2 amplifying tomes and 2 sight wards. And what's he going to do with that? I mean, he's going to be a little stronger, but it's not the same as buying a revolver. He's still at a risk of taking quite a bit of harass, and Gangplank is in a better position now. He has a Vamp Scepter, he has a Null Magic Mantle, I believe that is? Yes. I think that's Null Magic Mantle. But he has the weaker MR item, and it's going to be hard to deal with him just because he's trying to build to counter Vladimir in lane, because he wants to farm quite a bit. Luckily, he doesn't have to deal with him for a little while, because Gangplank goes to Dragon, because they caught Rise mid and decided, you know what, let's get Dragon. Now, something to note, when the top laner you're up against goes for Dragon, you push top lane and you deal damage to that tower, and if possible, you kill it. It can be a problem for you to kill that tower. You might have trouble in lane because you can push past their tower now, but you want that global gold for your team, because you know what, the enemy team just got 190 global gold per person. You want 150 per person to head out there too. Duomas did not really push that hard. Unfortunately, Vladimir, he can push creeps up, but his low base attack damage makes him a very just terrible pusher. He is atrocious at it. It's so bad for him. But there's finally a revolver on Vladimir. He is starting to enter the Vladimir zone. As you can see, Gangplank will not win trades with him. If Gangplank gets a shot off, he's going to get queued, and if he goes for auto attacks, he actually gets punished quite a bit more. Dumas is running a bit too far away, but Gangplank's also much, much faster than Vladimir because of Ray's morale. So it's going to be kind of tricky for him to always be in range to Q, but he wants to be in that position if possible. Now, we're going to go for a dive in a second, and I want you to watch Vladimir's skills. This is a problem I see a lot of people have. Now, when did he use his Q? When did he use his E? He used it after pooling. He used it when he'd already surfaced. And that was a big problem because you know what? Had he ulted, had he Q'd, had he E'd, and just backed off, he wouldn't have died to Lee Sin, or at least made Lee Sin chase him and just not walk into the blind man's fists. So something very, very important a lot of people will have trouble with is staying calm enough to go ahead and use those important skills at a very, very safe time. So I see this all the time with Morganas who get scared. They won't ult. They'll just hit Zhonya's. And sometimes you actually have to do that. Sometimes there may not be enough time. You may not be that split second before ult activating and Zhonya's activating. But you know what? 99% of the time, you need to get that skill off. You need to go ahead and use that ult before Zhonya's. In this case, if you're Vladimir, you got to get as much off as you can. Especially if you're in a position like he was. He had quite a bit of HP. He could have survived that tower for 1 or 2 shots, for sure. And the fact that he didn't go ahead and go for those damage skills meant that he had to keep chasing Gangplank, he had to keep fighting, and he had to retreat past the enemy tower, leading him to Lee Sin. So go ahead, use your skills, and then use your defensive option, then use your Zhonya's, then use your get out of jail free card. Vladimir's pool is such an annoying skill, by the way. I would actually like to give a brief shout out to Plasma because his Jarvan guide and his Jarvan-ness in general has inspired me to play him after that daily, and my god, he is so much fun. But right now, Dumas is going for Dragon. Now, we're not going to look at Gangplank, but look for the tower destruction message. And a fight breaks out after killing Dragon. This is a 4v5. Kennen is low though. So it starts out with Smokescreen, and then as Vladimir leaves Smokescreen, there's a Gangplank ult. I love that combination. That's such a good combination of slows. Anivia kills Nocturne and kind of backs out. At this point, Janna's been killed, and they see Anivia alone. Now, Anivia is a character who, if she builds defensively, she does a ton of damage without AP. With AP, she deals about 1,000 damage, I'd say, with 100 damage, or 100 AP on her Q and her E. Maybe a little less. But as you can see, she's gotten 2 kills. That's a bad thing. That's a really bad thing. That is terrible for blue team. What can the home team do in this case? Well, they got to get that kill now. They've put so much time and effort into it, but that great wall just means they can't. I mean, Alistar can chase. He might actually die if he does catch her. And well, it's a loss right there. I mean, that was still a good fight for blue team. They got Dragon, they got Janna, they got one more person. Lee Sin. But they lost so much in that exchange. You can't let that happen. You can't let an enemy essentially go equal in a fight like that, because you know what? You're going to get punished. And Anivia getting 1,000 gold, and she actually killed Nocturne, so she got the full 1,000 gold. It's going to set you back. It's going to really hurt you. Now, looking at Vladimir's item, he got a Negatron Cloak. And as you can see there, they still have the same composition, GP, Graves, and Lee Sin. Now watch how close Vladimir lets Gangplank get to him before he starts to retreat. He walks into Gangplank. And that is something important to note. If you are someone like Vladimir who has to stay squishy, who has to kite, just go ahead and just never let them get near you. That is how AD carries kite and why AD carries are so strong in this game, even with no defenses, because they will auto-attack and they will run. In this case, Vladimir needed to make sure he was not close to Gangplank ever. Now, Gangplank, once he gets close, he has 417 move speed without Raise Morale activated, which is a ton. And here we have a little engage between Anivia and Lee Sin. They caught Rise as he was going towards blue buff, and they get caught and die. But just Vladimir advice, if you're going to get into a sustained long fight and there's someone who will outdamage you, you cannot let them get near you. You cannot let them just be in your face. In that case, Gangplank is one of the worst people about it, because he has that passive slow built into his character. So, once Vladimir was slowed, he was dead. There was nothing he was going to do to save him. I mean, he got a great flash over a wall, and he was still too slow. So, stay far away from those pirates, but just make sure to get that kite potential out there. To have that skill where you can just go ahead, stay far away, and kite someone. Now, right now, there isn't too much of a discrepancy, except Rise is about 25 CS behind Anivia, and Graves is ahead 40 CS on Kennen. Now, that's kind of scary, and you factor in the 3 or so kills that just got given to away team in between the Gangplank top and the little fight by Blue. Blue team's really far behind now. They do have equal dragons, but they don't have any enemy turrets down. And the global gold for away team and just the farm gold is so much higher. Now, this is a great fight. I love this fight. Look at the positioning of Gangplank ult and Graves' smokescreen. You cannot get to anybody because of that. And we have Lee Sin going on a dragon, so it's going to be very, very scary for blue team to get that dragon. They have to fight now with dragon on Nocturne. Alistar takes so much damage just from the AoE that he has to ult just to survive. And Kennen ults but stays in Lightning Rush, and he actually goes for the Lee Sin. So Graves is in the back, he's getting free shots on the enemy team. At this point, Vladimir, he didn't hit Graves and hit some important people. People are starting to go down, and Anivia shows up to the fight. That was a 4v5, and they were already losing it. They might have come up equal, but unfortunately, Anivia showed up. And what went wrong with that fight? Just the people who needed to be attacked were Graves. Graves that needed to die. He needed to die very, very quickly. Gangplank dying would be good too, or Lee Sin, but they need to get down that range AD carry. And by the time he did finally die, it was just too late. The AoE did not hit him. Kennen lightning rushed away from Graves, which is bad on many levels, because when you lightning rush, you're not auto-attacking. You can't auto-attack. So Kennen wasn't getting those sweet, sweet hits off. He has a Phantom Dancer. He can't really rely on just like one auto-attack to burst. He needs to be continuously auto-attacking. Alistar just being melted beforehand was really bad for them, and the focus was off. And that's something you will learn. Teamfights are super chaotic. It's very hard to understand what happens in quite a few of them. But you still have to go, in your mind, you have to make a tunnel vision. Just be like, alright, I gotta go for that guy, or I gotta protect this carry. I gotta do this thing. You gotta have that goal, you gotta find that goal, and you gotta do it. In this case, blue team needed to kill Graves. They needed to not fight for Dragon, but fight the enemy team. And they didn't. It was gonna be a hard fight no matter what, because the enemy team was so far ahead. But that time period where Anivia was not there was their time to win a fight, and they didn't. So at this point in the game, we're at the clearing Baron phase of the game, which is always so exciting. Think of 2 sharks trying to eat each other, and they try and set traps with krill around Baron. So they're dropping these wards. They want to have vision on Baron, and all of a sudden there's no vision for blue team. They're scared. This is where characters like Maokai really come into play. But more importantly, where's the oracles? So there is no oracles, there is no way for blue team to see anything in terms of wards. And Alistar's about to get scared. He's going to do something very, very silly. Watch the Alistar and just watch what happens in this upcoming skirmish. So right now it's still just, walking back and forth, but you'll notice away teams are very, very, in position. And that's because they have wards right now on blue team. So Alistar gets scared and he goes, I have to place that ward so we know if they do Baron. But think of how useful that is. Well, what's that ward going to do? It's going to have them be in vision to do Baron, but they're not going to have any coverage as soon as Janet enters that little area. And that's because they have an oracles, and you really have to exploit oracles. It's such an important item. It's not a fun item because you get really scared when you carry it, and it's not enjoyable, but you gotta have that vision. Now, Nocturne, the same thing just happened. He was scared. He said, you know what, I can go for a steal, but unfortunately, well, he died. Now, something really, really bad's about to happen for blue team. Much, much worse than Nocturne dying, or even Alistar dying. Rise DCs. At this point, I think two things could have happened. I understand what happens, though. So, blue team goes for a fight. They're like, well, screw it. We gotta fight. And it's totally understandable. You gotta make a big play. They're fighting from behind. They got to defend that tower. But they could have also just went ahead, lost the inhibitor, and tried to wait for Rise to show up. I mean, I don't know if they knew whether he was showing up or not, but it's understandable that they just went for the fight. Unfortunately, Rise did reconnect, and they might have held and might have come back, but most likely not. And just those few catches led to the end of this game. And I would like to end this with a few notes, actually, so I'll see you guys in a second. And we can just discuss the end of the game. But once again, thanks to Blue Team for giving me this replay. Adios, folks. Hey, folks. So, what went wrong? Like, what? They just kind of lost, and a few important things happened. First, Anivia got those kills off. Now, Anivia getting kills is very, very bad, but that was AP Anivia. That wasn't, you know, Froggen from EU going ahead, building Warmogs on Anivia and being very tanky and hard to kill, but safely farming up other items. That was an Anivia that did damage fast, but had mana limitations. So she got 3 kills in that fight at Dragon. She killed Alistar before she got to the fight. She killed Kennen and Vladimir as they chased her. And the fact that she got away and didn't even lose Egg meant that that was free. I mean, she lost teammates, but for her own skill usage and just there was no punishment. She just went back to mid and farmed. So that started to make Anivia very, very scary, very, very strong. And Anivia is a very dominating character. Even in tournament games, she can just snowball out of control. She's not someone you can lock down, necessarily. So they went ahead, got the dragon, gave those kills up. Then Vladimir died top the gangplank as Rise and Nocturne died in a jungle fight against Lee Sin and Anivia. And a lot of it comes down to just being at the right place at the right time for the enemy team, for away team. How do you do that? How do you know where to be? Well, you got to think, where's the enemy going to want to go? They're going to want to go for their blue buff. They're going to want to go for their Vladimir to protect him. And Anivia and Lee Sin were in there to defend. They're going to want to be in certain places, and it's your job to go ahead and catch them in those places. That's why you see a lot of wards in very specific locations, protecting blue, protecting dragon, protecting baron, things like that. And if there's no vision there, then you know what, they can catch you when you go put a ward there. And there's just like lots of little games, little tricks that eventually develop, but the basis is, I want to be in a position where you want something and I'm going to catch you by surprise, because if I catch you by surprise, there's a much, much higher chance of me winning. And then, of course, the fights that they got into, well, there was not a lot they could do. When they went for Baron, Alistar warding Baron, I mean, what's that going to do? If they do get the ward down, Janna has oracles, they'll clear it almost immediately. If they don't get the ward down, well, they might escape. But without that oracles, without that vision, that mystical vision granted to see invisible heroes and units, they can't do anything against the ward coverage. So a lot of it was just map control, map vision. Map control generally refers to ward placement and being able to be where you want to be without any contention from the enemy team. I'd say is a fully controlled map. So if you can be by their inhibitor, attacking it, and they can't defend against it, then you have map control. That's a bit of an extreme example, but let's just say jungle-wise, if you can be at the red and they can't do anything about it, that is map control. So what blue team needed to do was ward up very heavily, just be very, very careful of certain objectives, and realize that the enemy team was going to want to contest them, was going to want to fight there. And that would have helped them quite a bit. Just organizing and just kind of getting like a little mental map of, well, I want to be there, where do they want to be to stop me? This is why when you take an offensive control of the map, it's much, much stronger than taking a defensive hold. Because if you are in their face doing things, you can't quite be in quite the same position. You can't go ahead and oracle sweep your own jungle if they're in your face attacking it. Compared to your jungle, if you're being very defensive and they're just in your face, well, they're just going to clear all your crap with wards. You'll never get a ward to survive in the river, for example, if you're playing defensively. And sometimes you gotta play defensively, but And just kind of snowballed for blue team. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this. Go ahead and get some rest. I know I'm going to. See you guys on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Studio saying adios.